Hi all, and welcome to Cosmic Voice on this Wednesday evening with Tanaath, Sunfire and Drake. The first song was Space Strucken by Deep Purple, and the second one was a request by one of the members, the Buchanan brothers, When You See Flying Saucers. So hope you enjoyed it. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to Tanaath, Sunfire and Drake.
Hello.
Hi.
Right.
Hi, Drake.
Hello.
Right. How's things?
Rainy.
Is it?
Yeah. We're just waiting on things to rain out here, but it ain't done it yet.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, do you want to start with the questions, or does anyone want to say anything first?
I think I'll hold back till Sunday's show.
I do have some things that I also want to say, and
yes.
I think Sunfire did as well.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll let you lead the pack tonight, Ma.
First of all, given some recent changes in the situation, we have had questions of people who are asking, what will contact look like? Right now, we're heavily revising whether or not we want to be a part of anything that involves removing 3D people from this planet and taking them to another planet. So we're not too sure what we're going to do on that part, at least as far as the Silver Legion and the Galactic Federation of Planets is concerned. As it pertains to contact and letting you know that we're here, we do have a number of things that we have planned. We're going to probably start with trying to make our ships a little more visible in the skies. So, keep your eyes peeled, look up. You see more than chemtrails when you watch the sky. The other thing that we want to do is we definitely want to include face-to-face meetings on the ground. Some people may receive knocks on the door from their own relatives and friends asking if they can come have a chat. I want to make it very clear to people that if somebody's asking to remove you from the planet, you go with your gut instinct. Don't get so excited by the idea of a ride on a spacecraft that you just say, oh, golly gee, I'll go, and, let your discernment have a rest. Never let your discernment have a rest. If someone shows up, make sure you follow your gut. Make sure you don't go with anyone who does not feel like family or who you don't recognize. Some of you guys are already in contact with your family up there. Develop safe words and passwords with them in order to make sure that there's no imposters or nobody trying to pull a fast one on you. When it comes to public contact, honestly, public contact is going to wait. We're emphasizing face-to-face personal contact over public contact. Why? Because it's a hell of a lot harder to rationalize that away. People are very, very good at rationalizing away everything they see. If it's on TV, then it can be rationalized away as an advertisement or clever publicity stunt. If it's in the newspapers or on the internet, same thing. You can't rationalize away when people land in your yard and say hi to you. It's very, very difficult to do so, especially when you automatically recognize them and understand that they're your relatives. So that's why we're focusing on face-to-face things. It's also a heck of a lot harder to stop that kind of contact methodology or paint it as a hostile invasion or do other forms of information sabotage to it. As for when this is going to happen, again, I hate to use that dreaded word soon, but we're looking at starting that phase as soon as it's possible, and we're hoping that will be sooner rather than later.
Sounds good. Sunfire?
I think we're good to to go into questions unless Drake's got something he wants to say.
I would suggest everybody really take to heart what Cass said.
Yeah.
It's not something that you want to play games with, and you sure don't want to get on the wrong boat to take you to the wrong place.
You will. You're not limited to just one chance. If it's a true, if it's really your friends, they'll understand if you say no. And you're not going to give up your chances altogether if you do say no, because we understand safety and security, and we understand that these are paramount. The safety and the security of the people on this planet is paramount.
One of the things that people do is to use password recognition of a life event, name of a pet that only a few people would know, that sort of thing. So, think in terms of that, and that should help you get past a lot of the BS if there is any. You got to remember one thing. There is a limit in terms of the capability of these people to pull things off. You are their limitation. So, just simply understand that if you feel comfortable and it's for real and you, as stated, feel them as family, you're probably all right. 99% of that would be okay. And few can slip by. Now, here's the other part. Don't worry about it if you got to make a second trip, and you can tell them to do something when they get down that was a secret hand signal between you two as a kid, or what stuff that only you and that person will know, and that eliminates all the fun and games and problems if you do not have the capability of using your gut instinct like some people can. That's just my word, okay?
It's always better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even in the past, I've had physical contact experience with my brother and some of my crewmates, and it's like, the only way I can explain it is like you just know. It's like seeing when you're in your 30s and you see that grandparent or that aunt you haven't seen since you were a baby, but just something inside you recognize them. That's the feeling you want to look for, not something of intimidation, not something of, oh my God, these are ET gods, I must go with them kind of thing. You want that recognition, that automatic, I know you.
And if they're legitimate, they'll respect your boundaries and your choices.
And they'll answer, even if you have 100 questions, they'll stand there and patiently answer them.
Go with your heart.
Oh, yeah. Go with your heart, go with your instincts, go with your intuition. And I just wanted, I did think of one thing that I wanted to address. I know a lot of people are really, really, really concerned about Fukushima right now, and they're really concerned about the storms that are heading towards it and all this other stuff. Keep in mind, guys, the ETs have been working on that site since the incident happened. We've got it under control, and it's barely 0.5% as bad as it's being made out to be in the media, even in the alternative news sources and all these nuclear experts and everything else. We've got that situation under control. We're not going to let anything bad happen to it.
I still eat sushi.
Yeah. I still buy fish on a regular basis. That is taken out of the Pacific.
Well, from my understanding, there was a Japanese scientist who went to the site and was standing right next to it with a Geiger counter, and there was no, it was just general background radiation. That was over 18 months ago. The trade winds and a jet stream blow right over around the Vancouver area. There was a guy around that area who also had a Geiger counter, and it was actually showing less radiation than normal. So, it's just these things that people put out every now and again to put people in fear. Don't fall for it. You know,
Exactly.
it's a weekly occurrence, and you just switch it around from the NASA documents of Fukushima to World War III, and on it goes, and just repeat. Just jump off the wheel and not accept it.
Yeah, they keep bombarding people with it, and I mean that's kind of one of the things I wanted to reiterate from previous shows is you guys need to move into a position of love and positivity, and try to hold yourself there and help your family and your loved ones and your friends and those around you come from a position of love and from positivity, and even as much as where you're looking at something objectively from outside the situation, not being so emotionally involved in it, so that when you recognize the fear of war, you can kind of take that Zen approach to all this bombardment and stuff, and just like acknowledge it, release it, and let it go on. Don't let it affect you in any way negatively, because it's something that's really, really important right now is that we bring in the light and we anchor it, and we bring in the positivity and we anchor it here on the surface.
Very good. Right, are we ready?
Yep.
Right, here we go.
Yep.
Once we are in 4D, is it possible to build cities in the sky?
I don't understand what the qualitative difference is between a ship that stays in one spot and a city in the sky.
Yeah, me either.
What was the
movie? I would
movie?
assume it's possible, but I don't know what the purpose of it is.
Okay. What was the movie Prometheus about, and who was the white entity in the movie?
Actually did not watch it. I found when I was watching the trailers, I found them extremely triggering and didn't want to have anything to do with the movie, so I didn't.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Several nights ago...
Either of you watch it?
No, I didn't either.
Drake,
Sunfire? Never stuck with me.
You what?
Prometheus. Did you watch the movie?
Any of you guys watch Prometheus?
Oh, well.
Yeah. Right. We'll go on to the next question. Sorry about that. This person had an experience several nights ago, was under psychic attack, and was in what appeared to be an underground garage where a multitude of creatures were chasing her, or him. I awoke with bruising and scratches all over my back, legs and arms, and haven't felt well since. How do we avoid involuntary astral projection?
I don't know how to avoid involuntary astral projection. What I know, most people who are aware of the phenomenon are trying to voluntarily do it. You don't hear too often about somebody who's trying to make it stop. I would say the best thing to do is learn how to take control of that dreamscape, learn how to lucid dream, and learn how to defend yourself. And that way you don't need to fear it. Fear is an attractant. It's kind of like pouring a little blood into a shark tank. If you maintain a mental space that is free of fear, you will attract much less trouble. And when you run into trouble, you will be able to handle it a lot better because you're not panicking. Don't think of yourself as powerless. In a dreamscape, you can give yourself whatever supernatural or crazy Superman abilities you want. If you want to be able to turn around and kick their butts in return, you can do that.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, one thing I know about those little small miniature T-Rex looking things, in my experience, you turn around and just grab one of them by the neck and give it a good shake and then toss it against the wall. That'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Maintain a mental image of yourself as invincible. It really does help.
Yeah, they're a lot easier to deal with and a lot scarier looking than they really are. It's just a matter of you knowing and not being shaken from that knowing, but just knowing and having confidence that you can handle those, those little creatures like that. And I mean, think about it. Generally speaking, you're 2-3 times taller than those things, and you can even just grab one and and start using it as the club against the rest. That usually creates quite an impression.
Yeah. If you find you're running in your dream, turn around and face it. You'll find many times it goes away. It's your own. A lot of dreamscape is your own fears. You turn around and face it.
What these things are doing is feeding off your fears. As long as you're running and afraid, they're getting what they need. The moment you turn around and say, I'm not going to play this bull crap anymore, and, well, game changes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I remember Tanaath telling me about one dream she had where...
Oh, yeah, I had somebody trying to send me hostile dreams, and they kept putting me in situations where I was getting shot at. Or, there was assassins coming, and finally I just, got fed up with it and started grabbing them and swinging them at each other, and I could feel it definitely gave them some pause.
Taff, would it be helpful to go before this person goes to sleep to go in with the intent not to have these? Does that help?
Yes, or even the intent to take control, because if you are in control of these things, they become a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
You want to develop a dreamscape where you've got a very appreciative harem of the preferred gender. Hey, that's much more fun than getting chased around.
Also, I recommend going and getting Drake's book, Me, Myself, and I. He's got a lot of really good useful data on astral travel and a bunch of other brain stewages that have come out of that very deep, vast mind of his that I think is very useful for everybody.
Okay. Question to Tanaath or Sunfire. Do you know about any other plans to bring people to a 3D planet aside of the Andromeda Council?
We're analyzing all the plans that we've seen and seeing if, there really are something that we want to stand behind or if it's something that we would be more opposed to.
And also we're looking at, what other options there are for people that need to or want to stay in 3D. Because there's not a specific option. There's a bunch of different possibilities and things. But I do know something will be done. I don't know what yet, though.
Okay. Next question. You say that everyone that has a heartbeat present on Earth will automatically ascend to 4D. Does this mean that the Cabal will also ascend the same as us?
Well, if there's any of them left alive, yeah.
Yeah, there's any of them still alive and on the surface, and of course. Yeah. But that won't be the case.
Yeah, and that also doesn't mean that they're going to be able to continue
No.
going along or creating the bull crap they've already been doing. Drake might have something to say about that.
Oh, yeah. First of all, there's a little problem in that the capability to hide under holographic images of not being what they really are goes away. And all of a sudden you're going to see people with scaly skin and other, let's say, socially questionable problems. Number two is that some of the, quote, powers that they have had, when used in the manner in which they have used them, short themselves out in terms of becoming non-functional. This puts them at a great disadvantage. In short, average person could walk up and punch one up the mouth, kind of thing, without having fear of them using psychic powers to pick them up and throw them across the room like you see in the movies. So there are a great many things getting ready to change.
Good. With you stating that this transition will happen automatically, So does this mean things like special meditation, Kundalini yoga are helpful, but not needed or required to go to 4D?
Well, they're helpful. They're helpful for getting people personally prepared to deal with the change, psychologically prepared, because it's a big change. They're not required. There is no equipment required. There is no special technique required. It is a natural, automatic thing. I would say the same thing with any psionic abilities, including telepathy. You won't need any chambers to give it to you. You won't need any special equipment to boost it. You won't need anything artificial. It will be automatic and natural.
That messes up my collection of tinfoil hats.
I was going to say in general, things like yoga, Kundalini, any kind of energy work, anything like that it's good stuff to learn, and it's beneficial not only to prepare yourself for the transition, but to stay healthy and balanced even in the higher dimensions. The people in 40, 5D, 60, all the way up, they all do, Kundalini, they all do yoga, they all do all various kinds of meditations. It's something that's just part of the normal lifestyle for the average being up there in the higher dimensions. And so to learn it now, it'll put you ahead of the game, and it'll be beneficial to you not only, in the sense of the transition, but for your own health and your own well-being in general. So I recommend it regardless.
Okay. To the person that asked the question about astral projection and the chainsaw incident, hopefully the previous answer will have covered that. Thanks for your question. Next one. Question for Tanaath. Knowing that Tanaath is connected to the dragon family, my sister had a clear dream about me. She saw me as a blonde 12-year-old giving directions to flying dragons. Knowing I had a wisdom that I carry within me, she told me this. There were two flying dragons coming to me and landed on my shoulders. Ever since, I see dragons flying around me, or dragonflies as well.
All right, so what's the question?
Is it possible that I'm connected to the dragons based on this dream?
Sounds like it. I'm not going to be able to tell somebody for certain who they are or aren't connected to. You have to be able to interpret your own experiences because you're the only one who can. An outsider can't necessarily do this. I would say, it sounds pretty plausible to me, given that you seem to be getting a lot of attentions from dragons. That suggests that dragons like you at least somewhat.
Right. You say that when in 4D, we'll be able to manifest just about anything. So I say I want to go to Planet Z and spend some time there enjoying the scenery and the unicorns. When I get there, is it really a place with a fixed location, or is it just a manifestation? Your thoughts, please.
All right, can I hear that one again, please?
Yeah, I thought it went off a bit. When you get to 4D, we will be able to manifest just about anything. This person wants to go to Planet Z, spend some time there, enjoy the great scenery and the unicorns. When they get there, is it really a place with a fixed location, or is it just a manifestation?
I really don't understand the question, so I'm going to try to answer as best as I can. Yeah. I think, there is absolutely no such thing as a fixed location. Everything is moving all the time. Everything is changing all the time. But, there's probably a location like that exists and that you can travel to.
Okay. Who or what groups were involved with shoving Earth into 3D after the fall of Atlantis?
The reptilians, the Alcyons, and all their buddies.
Right.
The bombardment of the atomic weapons and a bunch of other stuff caused the vibration of the planet to lower enough that it fell into 3D physical.
Okay. Does the person whose body was snatched, it doesn't say by whom, just move on to 4D, or do they enter some kind of soul trap?
Okay, I don't understand the context of the first part of the question, which makes it hard to answer the second part.
I would say abducted, possibly.
Well, anybody who's abducted by hostiles, they're probably going to be either imprisoned, killed, or otherwise hampered. If they've been picked up by friends, then there's usually, most of the time, they'll be coming back.
Okay. What is the most number of life mates, soulmates, and playmates we have and can make?
I really don't think there's a limit, except for, well, I guess the theoretical limit of how many people would agree to it.
Yeah, it's up to the preference of the individual.
Okay.
I mean, how many of those does the average dragon have compared to the average Chalcedian?
Some of them are pretty choosy. Others are very, very open.
Yeah. It's up to the individual.
Okay. A man named Donald Marshall has been sharing his experiences inside cloning stations where sex slavery, trauma-based mind control, and torture are used regularly among politicians, celebrities, royalty, and reptilians he calls the Vril. Does your own info on cloning stations match his story?
I would say it's used a lot among the Kabbalah, but it's not necessary.
As I've never encountered the material, I can't say if it matches his story. But I will say that it sounds at least that there's surface similarities. We do know that most of the cloning stations are also used as bases where other forms of quote-unquote preparation are used. And some of these do include things like those kind of hunter games and other nasty things that you see discussed in other places.
Yeah, I've heard of in even reading interviews or listening to interviews with all the different super soldiers and stuff, like Duncan O'Fionan, for example, and some of the others that have come out and talked, that they say that a lot of and I remember even reading in all the books about Montauk that they talked about a lot of sexual abuse and stuff going on. So that's pretty common ground among the Cabal projects.
Okay, this person goes on, he says, he also describes the method of how reptilians inhabit a human host using a worm-like object that they remove from their head and insert into the human's eye and become a new host for the rest of their life. Is this correct?
Well, I do know that they use a number of different parasitics to aid their mind control both internally and externally, so that could be a representation of that.
Question for Drake. There's a YouTube video that's describing the moon orbit changing, or is the Earth wobbling? The moon's orbit has shifted 34 degrees in 12 days. And also a friend who is a fisherman who monitors tides has commented on the changes with the tides over the past few months. Are you able to comment on it, please?
Yeah. There are several things going on planetary-wise that will cause appearances of shifts. This includes atmospherics. Most people are aware of reflective and lensing effects, and At present, there have not been any intentional shifts that are drastic enough to cause true orbital shifts. However, those are to happen over a period of time. What this basically means is that you have several things going on. One is what is known as the natural lensing or reflective effects. The other one is the artificial effects that are put up by people who want to scare the living whatever out of you. It's better known as fear porn. This is true of several of the, quote, heavenly objects that supposedly are there, some of whom are not, etc. So you need to take all this with a large grain or dump of salt. You need to understand that you have to individually look at these things, as has been stated. Discernment. Is that real, or is somebody playing games? And once you really put that question out, you have the capability of cutting through all the fun and games to what the reality is. There's always some shifts in heavenly bodies in terms of their travel. Always. These things are controlled by the mechanism that puts them and holds them where they're at anyway. So there would be limits as to how far this way or that way something can lean, wobble, or move. Therefore, you're going to have what might appear to be one thing and be something totally different. So bear that in mind. You'll find a variation simply in the magnetics, the gravitational fields of the planet and their movement in relation to a combination of heavenly bodies, including the moon. These can cause differences in tides and tidal shifts that people would say, ooh-wee. Keep an eye on it for a little period of time, and you may find that it wasn't exactly what you thought it was in the beginning. All right?
Okay. Question. This person encountered human beings that they suspected were not from here, with white blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect skin, no scars. Would you have any idea who I was dealing with? They were talking telepathically to. Are you aware of a...
There's a few different species that match that description. I think the veterans look like that.
Nice. Okay. Where are we? Is it true that we all have spirit guides, and where do they come from?
Hello?
I think most people do. Usually when you're born with an agreement that one of your buddies has got your back, basically. For instance, one of my spirit guardians is one of my dragon brothers. Whenever I get born, he volunteers to basically tag along and make sure that I'm covered, so to speak. I think this is usually the case with most people. When you're born here, you get somebody who's signed up basically to got your back. In rare circumstances, your guides might get killed or otherwise waylaid. Then usually, if they're aware of the possibility ahead of time, they'll call in someone to sort of act as backup. I say that's rare. It's extremely, extremely rare. Usually guides are well able to tackle anything that gets thrown at them. That's part of the deal.
Question for Drake. What is racial memory?
What is racial what?
Memory. MEMORY. That's all it said.
Yeah, well, okay. That's fairly easy to answer. There's basically several of them. Some of those deal with what you've experienced here on this planet in terms of reincarnation. You may have been any number of races before. It can also go past that to off-world or extraterrestrial origins, where you might see somebody that looks totally different from you, and it's merely your reflection in a mirror from a higher dimension that particular entity or spirit quality resides in. So it can be a multitude of different things. I don't find any of them to be false generally, specifically if it's a memory that's comfortable to entertain. So you just kind of have to go from there.
Okay. If we have spirit guides or astral guides or guardians, how does one contact them?
Start with intent, and intend only to contact them, nobody else. Don't accept any imposters. And it helps if you've had, some practice at sensing energy, sensing your own energy. If you've learned how to make a key ball, you've learned the basics of what energy feels like. From there, you could start learning how to sense what's around you. I started by sensing energy, starting to recognize, does it have a shape? Does it have a personality? Is it a being, or is it just floating energy? My first contact was with another dragon who's part of my family, who I was given a little iron statue when I was 16 by a friend of mine. That she'd picked it up. It was made in some craftsman village in Japan, and she'd picked it up thinking of me. And when I got it, I got a strong sense of a being that had tied itself to that statue, and I learned to communicate with that being by, first of all, recognizing its energy, and then we segued into imagery and communication, feeling almost like a hand stretched out of energy towards me, and I could tell that Eben wanted to talk or wanted to show me something. And I did not start out with words or vocabulary at first. I started out with images and emotions. I've since lost images. My imaging software and or hardware isn't all that up to snuff, but I've compensated by developing extremely high verbal communication, language-based. So yeah, start slow. Start with simply learning how to sense their presence, and then move into things like communication. Don't expect it to happen overnight. It took a couple of months before I was able to hold a conversation with any of my guides.
Okay. Question for
I actually learned that.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I actually learned telepathy from my pony that I have, and when she felt that I was sufficiently confident enough to handle higher levels of telepathy and stuff, she handed me over to my dimensional brother, and it just kind of went from there, and I started talking to him, and then he introduced me to my commander and a few others.
Question for Sunfire. Do you know where the UFO that crashed in Roswell came from?
It was the Greys. There was actually 2 UFOs that crashed that day. They were both Greys, and they were being chased by Federation ships. And they got a little too low, and both were shot down, and one ended up in a field, the other one ended up in a mountainside, not too far from there. So they were both Greys.
Okay. If we are all fragments of God made out of the same stuff, then is it true that we are all here to experience and remember who we are?
In a large sense, yes. However, there are certain things that were not in the original plan. Monkey wrenches that got thrown in by other beings. And that's one of the reasons why intervention happens. People ask, well, why doesn't God, fix things if it's not going the way it's supposed to? The thing is, Source acts through actors. Source shows problems to beings using synchronistic events, and then those beings make a free will decision as to whether or not they'll intervene and how. That's part of the reason that we're here. We were shown that this was a problem, and we were shown that, what could happen if we didn't, and we were given the opportunity to intervene, and we chose to.
Lucky for us. How long will our animal friends live in 4D, and will they need to eat?
Yes, they'll need to eat just like us. But
babies always need to eat. People who have and animals who are recovering from something need to eat, and many beings eat just for pleasure.
The food's so fun and it tastes good, even upstairs. And as far as I understand it, animals are they live basically in whatever dimension until either they learn all the lessons they need to learn, or until they're ready to move on to the next dimension, next level of existence. They have just as much choice in where they live and how long they're there and everything else as anybody else.
Right. Question for Tanaath. Are the Andromedan biospheres in orbit about a few million miles around the Earth? This person had seen this object visible for at least 2 hours until sunrise, and it wasn't the ISS.
There are Andromedan biospheres still in system. There are also galactic federations of planet biospheres in system. In addition, there's some Silver Legion. There's 2 Silver Legion biospheres in system. I couldn't say which one specifically the one you saw was, or if it was another form of ship, but you likely saw something.
Yeah, and there's a lot of the different individual races that are here, the positive ones that are here on the good side of things, have their own biospheres in the system as well. So it's not just the Andromedan.
No. Which ones are at the poles? Sunfire.
The 2 that are at the poles, they're not biospheres. They're larger ships. They're Arcturians.
Okay. Question to all: do the Andromeda Council, Silver Legion, and/or the Galactic Federation of Planets have representatives like Tanaath and Sunfire in other countries on Earth, if you are able to say?
I don't know of any other official Silver Legion representatives.
I was told that I'm the Galactic Federation of Planets ambassador on the planet right now.
Okay.
As far as the Andromeda Council, ask Pollock. We don't keep track of what the Andromeda Council does or doesn't do.
Question for Drake. Is President Putin getting his advice from advisors of the Galactic Federation of Planets or the Andromeda Council concerning the Syria issue?
He's basically more or less exercising his capabilities here at this point. He does have some contact with us, if that's the question. He, to me, he seems to be an innovative and very quick kind of person in terms of the uptake on any kind of an offer for peace. I appreciate it. I'm not going to denigrate the guy because he just happens to be the leader of the of one of our so-called enemy states or adverse states. He stated many times that there is a great deal more to freedom than meets the eye, and that the United States could be a very great friend and ally to everyone on the planet were it to be more freedom-oriented. This is, in terms of the idea of peace and the freedom orientation, there's a hold on that intention to attack Syria. Some of the things arranged, although few would find out or be able to verify or validate, have been arranged directly by Putin and his friends. You'll find that Putin is a lot more oriented towards straightening out the mess we got, so that a combination of things, to include hidden powers and capabilities, are no longer the great influence they have been in the past. Thus, the truth coming out about Syria, to me, I'm beginning to see some uptakes by mainstream media. Fox News just spent an hour with an interview with the head of Syria, and a great deal of the things that were mythological and assumptions were dispelled in that simple interview. So, and this is a part of what President Putin would request. Yes, have an interview with somebody who might be willing. Well, Fox News would be willing to jump on simply to keep the ratings going that they've got, that are a lot better than most. So, if, and this is an if, but I take it more as a probability than just an if. I believe that will eventually be resolved in a peaceful manner. And it may not be the type of peaceful manner everybody's used to, where somebody goes in and struts their military stuff up and down and says, "Thou shalt," but more or less a true agreement between the people that it's not necessary, and that somebody has been saying we got to do this when we didn't. And some of the truths that we've been looking for planet-wide probably will come out of this. I'm ever hopeful of that. So you have to look at Syria and the advancement of President Putin as something a lot more than what people understand on the surface. These people do not, and this is the cabal, or bad guys, as well as the good guys, want us to know everything. I would just as soon not know anything at all and have that thing peacefully resolved as any other way, to me. So, yeah, he's getting advice and counsel from a whole lot of people. Next.
If you clone animals, they grow at a normal rate. How do you clone a person and multiply the rate of growth fast enough to replace somebody?
All right. First of all, animal cloning is not, we'll just say, it is not the kind of cloning that is used to replicate a human. Animal cloning takes an egg, pops out the genetic material that is in a fertilized egg, and pops in the genetic material from an existing creature, and then raises that creature as a baby. It is called a clone, but there are a few differences between that and true cloning. True cloning only takes a couple of days to do. We don't currently have public technology or science that permits true cloning. True cloning is also illegal in the Galactic Federation of Planets and also in the Andromeda Council, and we don't do it in the Silver Legion either, largely because it's a very abusive practice that offers a lot of risks for the being cloned.
It's also unethical, too.
Yes.
And what they do is they use these. You guys have ever seen The Fifth Element? They use paints that look very similar to the one that being was manifested in, and they use a paint and then they use technology. And back in the 1970s, when they cloned Henry Kissinger and Carter family and several others, it took about 90 days for a clone to be made. And then back in the early to mid 2000s, that had shortened to about 2 weeks. Now they can make one in about 24 hours. But that also means that the quality is a lot less and they break down a lot faster.
Right. If we will be able to manifest what we want in 4D or 5D, will there still be a need for replicators?
Yes.
Yeah, because not everybody is good at manifesting. Just like not everybody is good at drawing, and not everybody is good at writing, not everybody is good at making music, not everybody is particularly good at manifesting. There are some people who are really, really, really good at this, and there are some people who are playing at best, and there are some people who don't even want to do it.
And also, trying to manifest complex things like food, ships, houses, technology, that kind of thing. Some of that is just not possible with direct manifestation, especially in the lower dimensions like 4th or 7D kind of thing. And so the technology is required to manifest and to make those things, because you just can't do it straight bare-brained in those dimensions.
It also takes some of your personal energy to manifest. And if you're the one who's really, really good at manifesting, and you're, on task to manifest the provisions for an entire city, well, you're going to get pretty tired. And you're going to get pretty sick of it. It's much easier just to use Replicator.
Yes. If, as I understood an earlier statement, this is the first time an entire planet with its inhabitants that have ascended all together, as vast as the universe, as vast as the universe is, how can you be so sure?
I'm not so sure, but that's apparently what they say.
Yeah, that's according to the guys upstairs, and they have all kinds of databases and stuff that go back to the beginning of this universe, and even all into the multiverse history before this universe was created. So, I mean, that's according to the data that the people upstairs have on a historical scale. This is the first time that a planet has transitioned to a higher, had a live transition to from 3D to 4D without the entire population having to either be completely removed or dying first to transition.
Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. The first song, for the people who ask, is Imagine Dragons Radioactive, and the second one was Request Clint Mansell and Requiem for a Dream. And we're going to bring
they
back
all like
Tanaath.
to play. That's the one they all like to play on the Fear Porn videos. That's an interesting request.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like Requiem for a Dream, though. That's, it's a really cool song. I was mentioning to the team that I could just imagine doing an equestrian quadrille to that song, but then, being that I'm owned by Unipeg, it's like everything that I think of in aspects like that always involves horses.
Very good.
I prefer a vaudeville dance to that, take some of the fangs out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine a really cool medieval-looking quadrille to that equestrian?
That would look cool.
Sounds like Final Countdown to me.
Oh, man. I love that song.
Yeah, we've got that.
We need to play that one. Play that one.
Yes.
Next break. Play the Final Countdown.
I will. Right. Question for all three. Why does the transition sound a lot like the Rapture?
Well, probably because the Rapture is a kind of bottlerized, heavily programmed mind control version of transition. It's also one that they like to say, well, only people who we like, who obey our rules and our particular brand of mind control may experience this. No, sorry, the real thing is far more egalitarian.
I like the idea that this time everybody gets on the bus.
Yep. Sorry, there's no special club. We're all invited.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that part.
Well, there's a few people whose names got left off the guest list, but, you know, regular people aren't off. They can expect to go. They can expect to attend the party. The ones who can expect not to attend the party are the ones who've been causing all the problems.
Yep.
But not
They're
the
going to show
bumpy.
up at other places.
Yeah, they'll show up a couple places, so have the door slammed in their face.
They'll show up in a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
Couple
Hopefully,
of pieces, sword slammed in the face, and the sword that goes through their gut attached to it.
Hopefully it's not the same bus you came home on, Taff.
Oh, goodness, don't even get me started on that. I am a believer in public transit, but I prefer it much more when it's running on time.
Yeah, wait till the planet gets its new public transit system. Nobody's going to want to drive anymore after that.
Yes, efficient public transit that gets you where you need to go when you need to go.
Yep. And very fast, too.
I'm not going to have time to knit on the bus anymore.
You open the door, walk across the room, open the door you're coming to, and you're there.
Yep.
All right, next part of this question. Did people know about the ascension in ancient times?
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of that knowledge has been recorded in varying forms and resides in the archives of the Vatican, of all places. So, yeah, now you know who's hiding what from whom and where it be. Anybody that really wants to find out, bug them. Go after them. Go get the info. Enjoy yourselves, because it's an interesting time trying to get into the Vatican archives. However, it can be done, so there you go, y'all. You want a research project? That's a fun one. I did it. If I can do it, you know.
If we're patient long enough, and we'll take the Vatican archives and all the other hidden knowledge and spread it all around the planet.
All right, okay.
It's going to be open to everybody's system.
Will there be a difference between the current 3D human soul and the future 4D human soul?
The soul is the same, regardless. It's still a soul. Your soul is not 3D. Your body is 3D.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Okay. You remember that biblical thing? And I love the Bible. It's a lot of fun. There's a little reference in there to a three-part being. Body, soul, spirit. Body, your physicality, what you walk around in. Soul is soul life and your intellect, basically. This is also an interconnect between what you have in physicality and what is known as spirits. There is a difference. However, you will find that the differential is inconsequential in dimensionality in terms of life force. The application changes, but the soul or life force itself does not. Spiritually, you become more aware and you become less physical the higher you go in the dimensions. That's basically where all this lies. And it also is the difference that people need to understand. Not easy to get your head totally around it, but that's the basis of it, right?
Okay. This person saw a full moon that was orange in colour. I have seen full moons orange before, but never a new moon. Is this the onset of the fourth dimension? Any comments?
Well, we always used to call them harvest moons on the farm.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. How does the sun fit into the transition to 4D? And by that I mean what will happen with the sun and the process it goes through?
We've covered this multiple times, actually.
Yeah.
But to reiterate, the sun is putting out a great deal of energy that is helping this transition. That's part of the reason why it's a natural transition, because it is a natural phase of the sun.
And also, it's transitioning from a yellow-white star to a blue-white star as part of its transition to become a higher dimensional star. And it'll exist mostly in the fifth dimension instead of just existing mostly in the third dimension. And the yellow-white star to a blue-white star is part of that transition as well.
Yeah, it's already fourth dimensional. It's going another step up, basically.
Yeah, and it's transitioning from the yellow-white to the blue-white is very important in that the Hopi prophecy, they talk about the blue star. I think it's Kachina or something like that.
Yeah, blue Kachina.
Yeah, is the influence of the blue light from not only Kachina, but also in the transition of our soul star is important in this as well.
I don't know whether anyone will be able to answer this question. To expand on that, will our eyes have to adjust to that new light?
No.
No. It'll just be it'll be something like we're just naturally able
We'll be able to take it.
Yeah. And also, blue is the first royal level in color. So, little interesting tidbit.
My favourite colour. Right, second part of this question. How is dark matter from the sun involved in all of this process, and what are its effects on the Earth and sun during the transition process?
A lot of what is currently termed dark matter is actually matter of higher dimensionality. The reason why it seems like dark matter to us is because we don't have the equipment that is fully capable of registering higher dimensional matter.
Okay. Once we transition to 4D in 2014, how easy for each family will it be to get a small spaceship for travel, and how long does it take for an average educated person to learn how to operate it?
Probably a couple of weeks in the simulator, and you'd be able to learn to operate it. As for how long it would take the average family to get it, well, once you've got somebody who's passed all the safety tests as a pilot, it should be fairly quick. I mean, with industrial replicators popping one out, it is a matter of seconds.
Yeah. And for scout craft, upstairs in the higher dimensions, it takes about, as far as I remember, it takes about 20 minutes to replicate a average scout craft that's 30 to 35 feet in diameter. And we can make what we consider our capital sized ships in a matter of 4 hours, and those are pretty big. And it takes about 8 months and can be done in as little as 3 weeks, but 3 weeks a month on average to to make what we consider the biosphere.
Depending on your equipment, some equipment can do it faster, but if you're using the lower priority shipyard, then it speeds like that.
Right. I think the fastest we've made a biosphere was in a week.
Yeah. There was the shipyards on the Silver Legion biospheres. They take about 4 hours to make a capital class ship. But the shipyards at Tau Ceti can do it in an hour.
Yeah.
The bonus is that the shipyards on the Silver Legion biosphere can basically be done in situ, and the crew's already there, so it can hop into action the second it's produced.
I'm going to add a word of caution to all this. Yep. In many cases, small ships are not allowed in certain areas or to travel alone for the safety of the people on board the ship. There are a large number of what you would consider pirates out and about who like to play games, and it's not necessarily, or as such, fully safe yet to travel on your own in a small ship. So,
you can do small ship travel within system.
Yes,
but
that's
generally,
what I'm talking about.
If you're going between stars, you're going to want a bigger ship, preferably one with shields and or guns.
You also want to travel with others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, why there'll be the interstellar tourist groups introduced for, those that want to travel in interstellar, because the ships will be designed for the purpose of traveling between stars and be properly armed and shielded for defense purposes. But, with scout craft, they generally just go from planet to ship or around the planet. And that's about what scout craft are used for. For those that are curious. And then there's shuttles and what they call runabouts that run from, inner system from one planet to the next, to the next, to the next.
Are they the trade ships?
Yeah, and there's even for cruise ships where half the fun is the journey, so they take less time. They're not attempting to get there as fast as possible. Instead, they're attempting to get there as fun as possible. So yeah, there is things like that, and no norovirus.
Yeah. Right, about Atlantean societies such as Lemuria and Mu, has any of that technology been found, and would that tech fall under our control after the Cabal is removed?
Okay, for one, I want to say that Atlantis is a separate thing, a separate continent, and a separate group from Lemuria and Mu. Lemuria came before Mu, and Mu came before Atlantis. Mu was in the main central continent in the Pacific. Atlantis is the main central continent in the Atlantic Ocean. And Lemuria sat where Malaysia and Indonesia and all that are currently. And as far as the technology, there's been a lot of technology that has been discovered not only by positive people and archaeologists and anthropologists, but also by the bad guys. And as far as what technology won't be released from that era into the hands of the general population, it will depend on the technology. We're not gonna be seeing, these big destructive weapons being released into the general population. And you don't give a toddler a flamethrower or a torch, do you? But
hopefully not.
A lot of the healing technology and the actual peaceful stuff will be. It's very similar. It's still a lot that's been in use for hundreds of thousands of years, so it'll probably be released into the general population. But what will be released first is the things that have been patented and suppressed that people have been creating, and a lot of instruction opportunities will be, put out for the general population. Because it's not just about giving the general population a lot of technology and just saying, here, have fun. It's important for the general population to grow spiritually and emotionally and, that kind of thing, and not be completely dependent on technology. You want technology in a sense that it's going to enhance and complement what you're already capable of doing naturally, and that's how it's going to be approached.
Technology is never a replacement for society.
It's never a replacement for natural abilities either.
Also, is there anything like a science fiction TV show or book that would give us an idea of how advanced this technology is?
Well, like I've said multiple times, go out, watch the original, any of the series from the original Star Trek franchise. Excuse me. Also, Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate SG-1, and all the other Stargate series. Those will give you a good basis for the kind of technology that's available out there and what life is like out there.
And also what we can expect things to be like, within 100 light years on this planet.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to emphasize, most certainly, especially Star Trek Deep Space Nine, guys, that if you want to figure out and want to know what is going on currently, go watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's, even though it was written and produced back in the late 90s, it's very current into what we're dealing with now and what is going on. And you can learn a lot from that series.
Right. Out of all the more advanced and suppressed technologies developed by Terrans, can you give any indication of any of these being more trouble than they are worth?
Just your technologies, anything that involves radioactive power or radioactive.
More trouble than it's worth.
That right there would be a good start, because it when you drop a nuclear bomb, it not only causes this 3D destruction that you can see, it causes rips and holes in fabric of space and time and existence, and taking into consideration that space and time and thought are not the separate things they appear to be.
Not to mention what it does to the souls caught in it. That is really not cool.
Yeah, it's very destructive. I mean, literally, a soul caught in a radioactive explosion gets shattered into billions of pieces and has been spread across, multiple universes and stuff. And then the spirit essence becomes trapped. It is non-existent. It's not a pretty sight at all. And so I'd say that's probably the most destructive, not useful of advanced technologies that, Terrans have created. As far as what's been created and suppressed, the only limit to anybody's capability of creating anything is the limits they put on themselves and their imagination.
Yeah, this is the reason why all the tree-hugging space hippies, quote-unquote, the very first thing they did was say, put the nukes down. When the U.S. government was thinking of it as just a convenient way or an effective way to win a war, we were much more aware of the full implications of using those things, and it's not good, not fun, not nice at all. They weren't just trying to take away people's toys. No, there's a good reason why we said put the nukes down before we give you anything. But, you know, that was the 60s before the Galactic Federation planets knew the full stories, and, well, here we are.
Yeah. Now we're not giving them a choice.
Yeah, for people who doubt this, you know, the Cabal have been pushing this World War III for a long, long time. I think they would have started it by now. And the reason they haven't started it is they haven't got nuclear weapons. Simple as that.
And
somebody keeps going, nope.
Yep. And, you know, also, as I think this is a really good example of the effectiveness of the will of the general population of the planet. All, you know, 90% of Americans and all these people around the world have collectively come together and decided and said no to World War III and said no to the war in Syria. And look at the effect that it's having, guys. Look at the effect and how strong and how powerful the general population is and the will of the general population. You guys have all said no and decided that it's not going to happen. And look, you can see for yourself, it's not happening.
So when the same amount of people, step forward on other issues, we end them as well. The sooner we all come together, the sooner all this ends. Simple as that.
Exactly, and that's why I've been calling for everybody to come to the middle of the room.
Yeah.
Let's dance together and see what kind of square dance we can have on these people's heads that have been trying to do all this fun stuff to us.
The ETs and the incarnates can't save you. Can't save this planet. All we can do is give you a helping hand. The impetus has to come from you. The first steps have to come from you. We do what we can to clear it away, but we can't do it for you.
Right. This will cover a number of questions because I've received this numerous times in emails and comments and questions on the Facebook. Lots of people are seeing little flashes in the periphery of their sight and in front of their eyes. Can anyone pass a comment as to what this is?
I would say it's probably their spirit guides and
it depends on where it is.
Around them trying to make contact.
It depends on where it is. I see this all the time when I'm looking at the sky. Just pinpoint flashes.
Yeah, I see that
I'm
as
never
well.
quite sure if it's just my fuzzy bad eyes or if I'm actually seeing something. And I always tell them, hey, I got fuzzy bad eyes. You're going to have to be a little more obvious than that.
Those energy flashes are an update at a very high rate of speed that no one can perceive at this level. And that's all I'm going to say, okay?
Yeah. Right. Can all the crystalline energetic properties of natural stone, such as granite, quartz, crystal, and other healing stones be perfectly recreated by replicator technology?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can, but it's more powerful when it's given to you by the planet. For instance, we can replicate the crystals that the Tau Cetian planets produce that form the basis of the star drives for the Tau Cetians and for the Silver Legion. But it's better to get it as a present for the crystal. And for anything major, the planet will give. It will purposefully produce that crystal for us and then push it up to the surface and give it to us. Harmony has granted the heart crystals for all of our biospheres in the Silver Legion. She was very happy to do so.
Good. So the second part is, can designers subsequently modify the shapes from the original signature into other shapes than the original without relative loss? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Up there, I work a lot with gems and metals. One of the things I do is basically shape them by intent. I can also create gems and metals. And actually there's a bit of a humor thing involved here. As a mineral-eating dragon, when I choose to produce waste, I can produce it as specific minerals, including diamonds the size of your head, if those are your thing, which makes for some very interesting payment for services rendered for beings that still trade and that kind of thing. You get stuff like, did you see where that just came? Don't care. Diamond the size of my head. Stuff like that. It's really hilarious. I get to prank a lot of people that way.
Yeah, I want to say, it is hilarious. And, Tanaath, she's very, very, very talented with, the metallurgy and the stonework and the crystal work that she does. She made this beautiful arm piece for my fiance, and I swear, it's like every time we turn around, he's got that thing on.
And most of the time, my things are functional, too. They're not just beautiful, but functional. Yeah. I've done custom jewelry for a lot of people up there who were looking for solutions to, personal problems. Like I have two friends who were constantly getting propositioned while on the job and asked me for some help, and I basically made them some rings that when they're on, it's kind of like a come in, we're open sign, and when they're off, people just don't think about propositioning them. It just doesn't occur to them.
I think probably one of the best pieces you made was the jeweled cuffs that were for my brother.
Oh, yes. Those were necessary. In order for anyone to get any work done around him, those were absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Go ahead and share about that one real quick.
Yeah, he's got a very, very attractive aura, I guess you could say. In order for anyone to get some work done around him, he basically had to have these cuffs on in order to suppress that so that everybody wasn't completely distracted. It was very entertaining for a while.
Oh, yeah, totally, because anybody that would walk past him would literally either walk into a
whiplash. Lots of whiplash.
Yeah, or they'd faint, or, it was highlight of entertainment. But, even something that's entertaining eventually becomes boring after a while or loses its novelty.
Sunfire's people were, by choice, celibate for a long, long time. And I'm not talking about Tausetians in general. I'm talking about her specific organization. And they recently voted to do away with celibacy, and it was interesting. It was a very interesting transition period.
Yeah, we have the division or group that I'm a part of is in the General Defense Division. We're very specialized, I guess is a way to put it. And yeah, that was quite comical.
And that actually brings up another point. Organizational processes and practices, when they no longer benefit, we change them. Yeah. We don't stick to something just because that's been the way it's done. That worked for 400 million years, but when they got tired of it, they really got tired of it, and they changed it. They had a vote, 98% for, 2% abstain.
Good. And that actually brings up a really good point right there. In the Galactic Federation of Planets and the majority of our allies and members, when the vote is held, you get generally anywhere between 90 and 100% of those that have the voting capabilities to be involved in the vote, and they get out and they vote, because everybody who participates or has a say in that specific thing gets listened to. Everybody matters. Everybody can express themselves and they get listened to.
Unlike down here.
Yep.
Where we have no say.
Yeah.
See elections, not elections.
Right. Yeah. It's a totally different paradigm up there. And I just want to apologize, guys. I've got a cold, so I'm just getting over that. So, my voice probably sounds a little funky right now.
Right. Question to all three. Would like an answer. When we are all living in 4D, what is the one thing you will miss mostly from 3D?
Can't name anything.
I
Can't think of it. Sorry. It's
I
been
really
like, sure, maybe it's kind of like roughing it for the first little while, but watching people I love die of diseases and old age is not fun. Suffering personally is not fun. Having to watch everybody around me suffer is not fun. Now, a lot of these things are from the social condition and the manipulation that was done here, but honestly, I'm content to never be 3D ever again after this.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything I'm gonna miss not being 3D. I mean, there's everything that you can do in 3D, you can do in the higher dimensions and more. So it'll be nice not being so limited and so restricted and so constrained. And
it might be appealing to some for the challenge perspective, but I've already been through it. I don't need any more.
Would either of you think differently if we didn't have the people that are going to the new 3D planet?
Maybe. But I have to say that this whole experience has really soured my view.
Yes.
I mean, considering things are not, this is not typical 3D. This is, I've said multiple times, Terra is an exception when it comes to 3D. 3D is not normally like this, but I mean, for the people that are still going to that other 3D planet or a multitude of different 3D planets, or however it is they choose to come back to or remain in 3D, however that happens, it's going to be a totally different experience from what they're experiencing here. It'll still be 3D, but it won't be like this. And, I wish them well, and I, wish them a lot of possibility, a lot of growth and progression and stuff, but I just, I prefer the higher dimensions. It's where I'm from and where I'm most comfortable, and I'm looking forward to going back.
Like my brother says, he has the most fun in 5, so he stayed there for 400 million years.
Yeah. 5D is a hell of a lot of fun.
For the benefit of new listeners, can one of you touch on the possibilities of, after the transition, people who have gone to 4D transferring back to 3 and vice versa? Is it possible?
Yeah, it will be possible. You probably won't be able to do it on this planet. In fact, I'll say you definitely won't be able to do it on this planet, but it will be possible.
Yeah, because once this planet transitions to 4D, there won't be a 3D present for this planet, anything more than maybe a like a gas giant kind of thing. Like we see the 3D version of Jupiter as this gas giant. It's because Jupiter exists in the higher dimensions as a solid planet, and that's what we're going to be seeing when people come into 3D, into the solar system after Earth has transitioned to the higher dimensions. We'll see a gas planet. You're not going to see a physical 3D solid planet.
Okay. Did the reptoids introduce pedophilia, and does it exist in other human races?
They introduced pedophilia. Generally, children don't engage in sexual activity. Some do, but this is entirely led by them. Generally, they do it among themselves, like other children. They stay with their peers in their cohort.
But no, in other positive societies and stuff, pedophilia doesn't exist at all.
Adults are just not interested. They'd rather play with someone their own, someone who's their peer.
Yeah, pedophilia in and of itself is caused by an imbalance in the systems related to the brain and the sexuality in the individual, and so. And a lot of it's genetic, and also a lot of societal because of, all the different various chemicals and all this other kind of stuff. And
the fetishization of youth.
Yeah.
We have a societal fetishization of youth. Pardon me, I'm tripping over my own tongue here. And this has been deliberate. And the cabal uses... Yeah, the cabal heavily uses pedophilia in order to start mind control and conditioning very young.
Also, they use it when they abduct all the children that they abduct on a regular basis and take them to the underground bases and things and start using them for, various projects and stuff. They start with the sexual abuse because they don't know how to otherwise bring out the individual's natural abilities and talents and stuff. So they use torture and abuse and rape and that kind of thing to bring out the abilities and also to shatter the soul into multiple different personalities, like they do with they talk about this all the time with the MK Ultra project. The super soldiers mention it a lot, and that's how they do it.
Disney is one of the biggest enforcers of the sexualization of children, sadly.
Yeah.
Can it be cured? Is it possible to cure pedophilia?
Yes. I don't know if it can be cured with current techniques in use on the planet, but it can be cured.
Yeah, anything is curable, including death.
Right. Right, next question. I was under the impression that Source directs the process of spirits/souls being born into babies, but this must not be correct if soul traps existed. Could you clarify how it's determined which spirits will be born into a given baby?
Okay.
Sorry.
Soul traps only work at the level between Terra and higher dimensions. They basically catch them on their way out and then shunt them back in.
So it's not.
So it never gets a chance to go all the way. Yeah, it never gets a chance to go all the way back to source.
Okay. When the soul traps existed, were our higher selves also caught in the soul trap?
Some people's were, some people's weren't. Some people managed to escape. I came around the time of Atlantis, had a life, died. That was before the soul traps were fully implemented. Went up, lived a couple of lives as a Tau Setian, then came back about 2,500 years ago and got caught in the soul trap. And I spent a good 2,500, well, I'd say 2,300 years going through the soul traps and the reincarnation process here on Earth. And then at the last one, I basically said to them, screw you, I'm not going back, you can't make me, and left. And busted my way out of there. And got out, realized, oh, boy, what a mess is going on down there. And then I had some people say, oh, Tath, we need you to go back. And I said, oh, hell no. You're not making me go back there. But they convinced me, and here I am.
Yeah, I guess, I must have been lucky or something. I managed to, in all the different times I came down to spend some time here on Earth, I managed to avoid soul traps every single time. But this is my first incarnation, my first life as an incarnate. I'm not doing it again. Nobody can convince me of it.
Is it more of an issue, the soul traps, for the incarnates here currently?
No, it's no longer an issue for anybody on this planet.
Okay. What I meant was it more of an issue for the incarnates coming here in the past?
Not really, because most of the prior to this, incarnates who had lives down on here, who passed away, likely would have got caught in the soul trap. It was very, very effective, the system. It was designed to trap people and catch people, even people who knew better. Catch them when they're still disoriented and vulnerable, because the first moments after death, you're pretty disoriented, let me tell you. So it exploited that disorientation, and then basically once they were caught, they were caught.
Okay. This next one's an interesting question. You have explained that even though childhood lasts about 200 years in 4D, we won't revert back to being children during the transition. However, if someone had an unfulfilling childhood and wanted to, would he or she have the ability to revert back to childhood?
I don't know about that. Possibly. But then I had, my childhood was decent, but I would not be a teen again for all the money in the world.
Me neither.
I'm being told from what I'm being told, they said that if you want to be a child again, you have to start over and experience a whole new life. You can't just transition from 3D to 4D as an adult and then go back to being a child.
So it's back to source and start again?
Right.
Yeah. Right. You have talked about how replicators make food that automatically is nutritionally balanced and free from toxins. Are you telling me I will be able to eat chocolate chunk cookies and key lime pies?
Oh, heck yeah. I am looking
my
celiac here. I am looking forward to a proper sourdough bread.
My brother, the dimensional one that we were talking about earlier with the aura that just is magnetic and has its own gravity system. He is one that you would never, ever, 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 ever want to give caffeine or sugar to. I mean, it's destructive. You just don't do it, right?
You should tell him the Frappuccino incident.
Yeah, but what happened was he came down to the surface back a few years ago, and he told me that he wanted to experience Starbucks. He wanted to know
physically down on the surface. This was before we became blocked off.
Right. And so I took him to a Starbucks, and he literally ordered anything that's in mocha or chocolate and told the poor barista to put it all in one cup. And I mean, this is like chocolate chips, chocolate sprinkles, chocolate powder, triple chocolate mocha frappuccino with the chocolate with cream. And I mean, it was just even it left me raising my eyebrow, and he loved it. And so he got the replicator tech to scan that scan it into the replicator, and down here it was loaded with calories and sugar and caffeine and all this other stuff. Up there, where he drinks it now, it's completely nutritious. But what was the Frappuccino incident you were talking about?
Yep, that's the Frappuccino incident.
Okay. I can't remember if it was that one or...
Mander managed to magic his cup straight to the replicator, so he had to do some work, and up there, if you don't sleep, you got to eat. Usually you get 2 hours of sleep a night. But that's where you get a lot of your energy from, is sleeping or, lying in the sun if you got a sun nearby. But if you don't do those things to recoup your energy, you got to eat. And he was not sleeping. He was pulling all-nighters, essentially. And Mander basically got a Frappuccino from the replicator and magicked it to be bottomless, essentially, never run out. Whenever it got below a certain level, the magic would trigger the replicator to fill it up again.
Good.
And
So what?
he was surprised. I remember
what you're saying?
All wide-eyed and going, "How did you do that?"
So will it be the case that people will be able to eat what they want and not worry about the weight issue that we everyone
your
tortures
body will
themselves
be
up there?
physically incapable of gaining unhealthy amounts of weight. The whole reason part of the reason why we gain weight down here is because we've been genetically damaged to create that propensity. You'll notice that there's people on this planet who seem to be able to eat whatever they want and in whatever amounts they want and never gain a pound. And then there's people who eat less than what they tell them to and still manage to gain weight and then get treated very poorly and accused of lying because of it. No, they're not crazy. They're not lying. They're not secretly cheating on their diets. Their bodies have been sabotaged at the genetic level to cause them to fatten to the point where their bodies will prioritize creating and storing excess fat over providing them with the energy they need to thrive. So they're tired, hungry, and exhausted all the time. They're not fat and lazy. They are lazy because they're exhausted, and they're exhausted because their bodies have been programmed to store all the energy they take in as fat, leaving none for them to operate on. Why was this done? Well, you only need to think about what the reptoids like to eat in order to figure out why that particular genetic modification was unleashed on the planet. So yes, that will be fixed. You don't need to worry about gaining inappropriate amounts of weight. And no, it's impossible to take in too much energy up there. You don't turn it into waste, and you don't turn it into extra body size. What you do is you end up burning it off. If you take in too much energy, you might find yourself hit with an urge to go into the arena and just let loose for a while.
So basically what you're saying, the genetic at the metabolism level is being turned off or reversed. Is that correct?
Yeah. 30 to 60% of the population has genetic mutations that were designed in order to cause people to fatten up uncontrollably, particularly when certain foods are introduced into the diet. Wheat and high fructose corn syrup happen to be particularly virulent triggers of the metabolic, the destruction of the metabolic control process in the body.
Okay, thanks for that. In 4D, will it still be important to eat balanced meals with fruit and vegetables, or will any foods fulfill our energy and nutrition needs?
Pretty much any foods will do, but most people like variety.
Yeah.
It's all energy, right? Down here we eat for nutrients and macronutrients and content. You got to have a little of this one, a little of that one in order to be healthy. Up there, it's all energy. It's universal energy. You get to turn it into whatever your body needs. So, if you want to eat filet mignon or creme caramel exclusively, you can do it. I don't know about you, but I get pretty bored of that.
Yeah. Well, as they say, variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, and one of the ways in which people still bond socially is to serve food to each other. Those who know how to cook are often prized because they're able to make it themselves. Even if they use raw ingredients from the replicator, they're still able to make it themselves. And food that's been cooked or manifested by somebody, it's an act done with love, and it often carries that extra love energy, which the replicator just doesn't have. So it's a real
Right.
treat when you get somebody who cook for you.
Yeah, Tanaath is upstairs and down here is an amazing cook, and since we all work together on a regular basis up there, it's always like we're always going to Tanaath and we're like, hey, can you cook us dinner? Can you make breakfast? And
Not bad for somebody who ate rocks for 4 billion years.
No kidding. And then like the commander of my division, he's an amazing cook, and he hosts dinner parties, and they are one of the most special occasions, I guess you could call it, for anybody in my division, or when, for example, when Paal has one of his dinner parties.
He cooks too.
And
We've been actually, and so does the head of the Procyon Intelligence Service, and so does the head of the Androni fleet. And we've actually kind of joked about maybe at some point all of us getting together and kind of having like our own little Iron Chef. Probably less competition and more seeing what each other comes up with. And then just having the recipes, and just having the replicator recipes sent to whoever wants, so that people can watch the holo while pulling from the replicator their own dish.
So when we have the Cosmic Voice celebratory party, we're all going to yours. Tath, is that correct?
If I've got a replicator to help, because I don't think I can cook for thousands of people. The most I've ever cooked for is 20.
Okay.
Well, I've been hearing things about replicators. I heard that some things don't come out tasting like they do when you put them in, and you got to adjust
everything, yeah. My brother, he's pretty good at making sure the recipe is close to what the original was. There's a few things that don't replicate all that well. Anything that uses bacteria or fungi or other living things to make it the way it's supposed to be, like certain cheeses and stuff like that. You best eat them quick when they come out of the replicator because they don't taste right after time passes.
Well, wine's something that it's very popular among people up there. It doesn't replicate. You have to, there's a different process that is required to make it.
Because wine requires fermentation. Yeah, that's one of those things that, if you want to know what people use for currency, well, wine is often used as a trade good because a lot of people like it, and it still has to be made. It doesn't replicate well.
If any of you have heard of kombucha tea, do you know if it's popular in 4D?
A lot of fermented products are. Kombucha, kefir, yogurts. Fermented products are very popular, largely because a lot of them taste good, and, they also promote symbiotic relationships between organisms. Basically, all those little bacteria and yeast and fungi and other things that produce kombucha form symbiotic relationships with the people who take them in. It's health supporting in the 3D and extreme, and it's also considered pretty awesome in the 4D as well.
The person comments, if you haven't heard of kombucha tea, you should get your friends to try it. It's really funny watching people try it for the first time. I presume it's got a bitter or some sort of a funny taste. Right, where are we? It is said that after shift, all man-made materials would cease to exist at Ascension. This question's been asked before. What will happen to people who live in high-rise apartments, tall buildings? Tolek has stated that people will know how to levitate. Is this true?
Oh, I'd hate to be the person who it happened to in the middle of the night and sleeping. With my luck, that'll be me. I don't think anything that's required for life is going to go poof. We'll put it that way.
And as far as levitation, from what I understand, it's not something that's natural for the native Cordy beings to be able to do. It usually starts happening as a natural ability around 5 or 60, but there are some races and beings that are in 40 that can do it naturally.
And the same answer would apply. We're not going to transition naked, I presume. That's the next question. All right. To Tanaath, what was it that Andrew Bartzis said about the Silver Legion on another show?
Basically, I don't know. I've never spoken with the guy. I'd never heard of him before somebody started posting stuff in my blog about him. But the snippet that I heard basically had him saying that he looked us up and found out that we basically tool around the universe saving people.
Oh, good. So it was all positive then?
Go listen to the interview. I believe it's on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah. Do you know if we have to put material into the replicator in order for something to come out, or does the replicator run some sort of creation program?
It runs some sort of creation program.
Yeah, it basically taps into the source field to create material.
Yeah. It doesn't need materials to make something. It just...
There are some human-designed replicators that do need material in order to transmute, essentially. But, once you've mastered being able to tap into the source field, that no longer becomes a requirement. If you've got the understanding to create an over-unity device, you have the understanding to tap into a source field. Over-unity devices are over-unity because they're drawing directly from the source field.
Okay. To the person asking the question about the change from January the 14th on the Ascension, I think we've covered that more than enough. We feel it'll be slightly later than that, and that's as far as we will go on that. Next question. Reading the correct translation of the Book of Change, better known as I Ching, taps into one's chi. This translation of the book is shown to new black belts of certain martial arts. How does this work, and where did the I Ching come from?
Drake, you want to take that one?
Oh, thanks. Okay. I'm not going to answer the question where the I Ching came from, and here's why. The basis of alteration and movement has many forms in terms of the ideology of movement itself and change. Both are one and the same thing if they are correlated correctly. This means you have to create and cause within movement a harmonic balance. This is the ideology of thought, intent and purpose, and application in terms of martial arts. When martial arts are studied in their very basis forms, you will find that martial arts is a form of dance. It is not too far disconnected or distant from the whirling dervish found in South America. The basis that you find this from is the act of broadening your chi, not just the use of it, but broadening it. This is where your chi actually interconnects with other energies unknown to you at that particular point in time. When you find that the correlation between movement, attitude, and intent and purpose come together harmonically, you will be able to do the extraordinary feat that is accomplished by the whirling dervish in South America. this is a manifestation where you actually connect directly with the source field and use it. People who understand the power manifestations of martial arts specifically and the directional energies involved in dance can readily see exactly what I'm talking about. If you have not come to the point where you can acquire such capability, don't be too concerned. It takes, in some cases, years of practice. Some people will never be able to attain that particular aspect of this. But in terms of the fun and games with the I Ching basically gives you a generalized direction of intent and purpose, and gives you the harmonic of solitude in conjunction with extraordinary noise or cacophony, which goes to rhythm. The ideology of the basis of it is to allow you to better connect with your innermost vibratory response to everything. This then gives you the ability to control those things you heretofore had not been able to control or even get close to. And it's an extraordinary study once you start it. I suggest everybody start looking these up. The reason being is that, as it's been stated, you can use a discernment quality. These studies, when you look these things up, will help you find the discernment required for you to know, without question, the intent and purpose of any action, no matter what it is. So, there you go.
Right. If we were fourth dimensional prior to the manipulation by the reptilian race and everything was in working order, what type of holographic power structure was in place in opposition to the current pyramidal power structure?
Is that my question?
Yeah. I think that's a Sunfire question.
Go for it.
Oh boy, you're going to see a correlation between the lack of the capabilities that have been in place and the realities. You're going to find these things. Well, everybody's going to find these things rather suddenly. The people using these things and the people that are in these positions do not believe that they're going to lose the capability of continuing to hide, so to speak. So, yeah, portions of things will be eliminated in terms of being able to hide. The other part is that the things that certain, I would call them evil beings, or those who have committed evil actions, may find themselves no longer wishing to be a part of those incidents. If this is the case, then they will basically be able to transform from the evil to the good. This will not be decided by people on the planet so much as the people who are upstairs presently. And I'm talking 560 and above. There is a determinate factors, and a little testing involved in order to make sure that this is the real case. Okay?
So, just to expand on that, will all what I would term as the trick technology, like the holographic stuff, all be removed before or after or during the transition?
The majority of the holographic technology that they were intending to use for like Project Bluebeam and all that has already been removed or destroyed.
Well,
So,
the thing about the holographs that are specifically being asked about, those things will not function as they have in the past. In other words, you won't be able to hide behind them. You won't have a humanoid image that you can put out because you've got scaly skin or whatever the problem may be. That's basically what I was referring to.
yeah, totally. And also, people have to keep in mind this universe and even this planet is a hologram. The universe is holographic. But, keep that in mind, guys.
Okay, this one's on weather. Monsoon season in southern Asia and Africa is July to October, but the rest of the world seems to be experiencing the same thing. Is this some sort of manipulation?
I would say it's a combination of, one is a combination of the transition that we're going through and a really good 3D visual, thing that people can see. You guys are asking for proof that the transition's happening. Look at the weather being all crazy and stuff all over the planet, for one. And then also the weather control is being literally arm wrestled away from the bad guys by the good guys, and so in the weather control being taken away from the bad guys and in the process of trying to restabilize it, well, all this crazy chaotic energy is going on because of the transition. It's going to produce these really strange weather anomalies all over the planet. It's kind of, so I'd say it's a combination of manipulation and a combination of the natural chaos that is very normal and typical for a transition.
Is it true psychopaths were created by the reptilians and they don't have individualized souls but seem to be connected to a common soul pool?
This is kind of mixing things up. The psychopathic tendency is a reptilian trait. It is a genetic remnant from the small percentage of reptoid genes that most people have. This does not mean that most people are at risk of being a psychopath or a sociopath, but that trait comes from the reptilian genes. I've never heard anything about them not having a soul or anything. A lot of the times they might just be incarnate reptoids.
Yeah.
In a past interview, sorry?
I was going to say the only ones that really don't have souls are like the clones,
Right. In a past interview, Sunfire, I think it was Sunfire who said the reptilians came here from a different universe and an outside force of some kind changed them to be what they are now. Were they more human-like?
Yeah, when they originally came, they called themselves the Alderzani. Portions of those Alderzani still remain humanoid, but the Alderzani were big genetic manipulators, and they had a caste society. And one caste broke away and went on to become the progenitors of the reptoids and the hydras, like the Draco and the Hydra reptoids. They basically genetically engineered themselves into reptoids.
Okay. Question for Drake. What are crystal skulls? How are they made and what are they used for?
Say the name again.
The crystal skulls. What are they? How are they made, and what are they used for?
My goodness, you want to get into nasty. Crystal skulls are a composite, structurally capable thought acquiring computer type system. That's basically what they are. That's very basic. Depending on which ones or which type you get a hold of, depends on whether or not it might be adverse for you to have any contact with one of them. In terms of how they're made, that is extraordinarily advanced technologies that several people, even in this group, would like to know about. I studied them to a point where I did get information on what they are in terms of how they're made and what level they're made on. And I was requested not to disclose that, and I have not done so yet. At the time that I am allowed to disclose that information, I will. Until that time, suffice it to say this. People who have had extraordinary natural capabilities, be that animal whispering of whatever type, be that remote viewing capability, be that telepathy or whatever, have been known to lose their powers in close association with the crystal skulls. This does not necessarily mean that these things are intrinsically evil. This means that we do not understand the correct capability in terms of our interrelationship with the skulls well enough to prevent damage to ourselves. This is the reason I don't personally recommend people getting too close. Just that simple. These come in several main sizes, slightly larger than the average human skull, and they come in a variety of smaller ones. All of them can be, let's say, not for your better health by being close to them. So the best manner in which to look at these things would be to do all of the research you can find on online and be satisfied with that limitation until such time as these things can be, to an extent, shielded in a manner that people can address them and or be close to them. Now, this is the average person. Somebody who is ahead of the game, so to speak, or more advanced than the average person, might be okay getting close to these. I decided, even though I was given the opportunity, not to do so. I like to be able to walk down the street or be around in a store or sitting in a restaurant and know what people are up to before they ever get close to me. I would not want to lose that capability. Therefore, I simply decided to keep my distance. I'll leave the rest of that up to you. Okay?
Right. Thanks for that, Drake.
You're welcome.
Who are the Batal Alex Collier has talked about?
The Batal that Alex Collier talked about, they're some of the what is known as the original beings that came to this universe back when it was created. Beyond that, I will not comment any further.
Okay. Will we be treated with mutual respect by other positive beings on different worlds? And will there be no more judgment like there is on Terra?
Yeah, most definitely. As long as you treat them with respect, they'll treat you with respect in return. This whole concept of judgment really is something that was introduced by the Draco and the Reptoids. So, I mean, it's not something that's, readily prevalent in the positives and neutral societies and that kind of stuff, at least among the Federation and our allies.
That's good.
But you got to give them the same respect that you're expecting from them, and the majority of them will treat you equally because that's how they want everybody here on the planet to see them and understand them. Is they consider them our equals, and they consider us their equals. And so, it's important that you guys treat them with as much respect as you expect them to treat you. It's kind of like that golden rule that Drake keeps going on about, you know?
And just to be careful on the bear hugs and the handshakes, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah.
Be careful on the
I
introductions.
definitely want to, don't try to reach out and shake their hand or hug them unless you're invited. If they extend their hand to you first or invite you for a hug, then, that's a different story. But don't think it rude of them, don't think they're being rude if they avoid physical contact and avoid getting, any more than within about 3 to 5 feet of you. Here we're forced to be on top of each other and forced to invade each other's personal space. With the ET upstairs, they have very much the full concept of personal space, and they respect another individual's personal space. And so that is very important. That's very important for people, even when engaging in conversation or contact with the positives and the neutrals. So, don't be surprised if you step, closer to them and they kind of take a step back. They're not being rude. They're just trying to, respect that personal space bubble.
Right, okay. Alright, this is, how old is our soul, and how did the first Terrans incarnate on Terra?
How old is the soul? That's an interesting question. Souls are technically eternal, which means they don't really have ages. That said, some come into universes at particular different points of time.
And, if you take into consideration that the planet itself is 7.5 billion years old, and it was made in the alpha system of the Ursa Major constellation, and then it was moved here to the solar system. The first modern Terran in the modern form came onto the planet roughly about 600 to 700,000 years ago, or possibly even further back from that. But there has been human and humanoid and non-human presence on this planet ever since it was created.
And the second part, I presume this to do either with Terrans or the soul, I'm not too sure. Did they experience life from somewhere else, or did they just experience this life on Terra?
Some did. Some are new, as in they've come into this universe from Terra, through Terra as a conduit.
Question for Tanaath. Are there any portals in Canada, and is anybody using them?
Yes, I've heard rumors of portals in Canada, and generally if I'm hearing rumors, it's because something's coming through.
Next
portals
question. Exist all over the planet.
Yeah. Next question is for me. Before I go into this question, to the person on the Facebook page who asked, am I of the light? The answer is yes I am, yes I am, yes I am. And for the person who's asking me the question, do you feel that we might go into 4D as because he's losing hope? Yes I do, and it will be in this lifetime. Don't lose hope. We'll get there. That's my answer. Next question.
And yes, I will vouch for the fact that Thomas is of the light.
Thank you.
Oh, shiny butt.
Big, bright, shiny, needs sunglasses anytime I look at him. He's definitely unpolite.
Okay. Once we are in 4D, will we have the powers like the Jedi from Star Wars? And once the truth is out that the reptoids were the ones who trick us, do you think that humanity will fight with the Silver Legion against the reptoids for payback?
I think a lot of people will. There will be a lot of opportunities for Terrans to join the Silver Legion and to train. And yes, we do have Jedi in the Silver Legion, so if that appeals to you, you will be able to get that kind of training. It'll depend on your personal and individual talent, skills, things that you like, etc., as to what you'll be doing. We're not going to completely strip away Terra of all of its heroes. So we do need some people to stay and hold down the fort on this planet because this planet has the right to self-defense. We're not going to clear out. We're going to maintain ships in the system and an active presence until such a time that Terra is able to field its own defense fleet and its own planetary defense. At that point, we'll still remain in contact, but we'll likely be moving the bulk of our fleet onto the next planet that is to be liberated.
Right. Could any of you give me an idea for how timeline shifting works? Is it through negative thoughts or current events or not meditating enough?
It's through various things. Anytime you make a decision, your personal timeline shifts, and it's not just negative thoughts. It's like, and if you make a decision, like, you know, between turning left or turning right when you're driving down a street, that affects your personal timeline. That affects your personal reality. When it comes to the collective timeline of the collective agreement that the whole population has entered into, that collective agreement to experience a specific timeline and a specific reality, then you have events like the London Olympics, for example. There's all this stuff going on about how the London Olympics were going to get bombed and there's going to be nuclear explosions and all this other stuff that was going to go on. Because none of that happened, it stayed on one timeline instead of shifting to a different timeline. Had the explosions and all that gone on, instead of it not happening like it did, then we would have been on a different timeline, or a different timeline branch would have, developed and would have shifted onto that. So, I mean, the main timelines are event-based, and where the individual person's timeline is more decision-based.
Does positive or negative thoughts have an influence on the timelines?
Not so much. It's more decisions. What decision is made? Like, do you turn left or do you turn right? You're out on a trail and you're riding your horse, and you have the option of going around the fallen tree or jumping it. If you go around the fallen tree instead of jumping it, and you avoid the jump, you also potentially avoid what would possibly come out of and change your timeline, kind of thing. Because what if you jump off the tree and the horse slips and then you end up getting hurt? That will change your personal timeline.
This person, when asleep, felt they were receiving downloads of information. Is this possible, and who could be doing the downloads?
Probably his people. His family, his star family. Of course.
Yes. Right. What is vibrational frequency?
Oh boy. Okay,
Sunfire.
It's easy to answer, and these people really love this one. Yeah. Each and every piece of matter in the universe, irrespective as to its configuration, has a very specific frequency at which it atomically and it vibrates both physically and outside of the physical. In other words, it produces a light and outgoing energy. These two, when put together, give the vibrational frequency and or signature of that particular object. These are not animate. I'm talking inanimate objects like rocks, stuff like that. So, the thing you might want to consider would be the vibrational frequency of our periodic table. That has been done, but is not well known or published. The other one is the energy output beyond just the base vibrational frequency that can be considered radionic in its composure. When you start realizing these two, then you'll better understand your base vibration, because people are made up of a whole lot of different items. The controlling factor is your life force, better known as soul, and your spirit, which is the primary factor involved. So you can sit, if you are an adept, and actually relax into yourself to the point where you can actually feel your own, very own basis vibration. This is a part of your soul pattern, among other things, as it might be called. So enjoy the trip, because it's pretty fantastic. You can look up the matter online, and my second book gets into vibrational patternization of souls and whatnot a bit. So, and the second book is coming soon. Next.
Is 4D detectable with current instruments?
I believe there were some night vision goggles that were capable of seeing into the higher dimensions and even the spirit realms. And once this was discovered, that generation was quickly replaced.
Yes, they were confiscated at the border.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that are asking for people that want to really get good footage of UFOs. I recommend true full spectrum video camera, HD, and make sure it's real full spectrum. Usually, like the ghost hunting supply type shops that sell the full spectrum video cameras online, they're a really good supply for place for those kind of things. They're better than night vision even when it comes to videotaping UFOs.
Okay. Question for Tanaath. Why do most ETs seem to be communicating with gifted humans, i.e. those with strong psi abilities?
Because it's a heck of a lot easier to communicate with somebody who you can actually communicate with for the most part. Remember that I do have some natural gifts. I have also honed these over 16 years. So it's not like they picked me out of a hat. If you want to start having that kind of experience, start practicing with what you've got. Build it up. Like I said earlier in the show, I didn't get this overnight. It took me a month before I was able to exchange words with Eben. You might actually have talents that are stronger than mine and be able to pick it up quicker than that. Try it. Start with learning how to sense energy first.
Yeah, and if you guys want a book that would be kind of like a guidepost, and I don't think it's something that, you have to follow word for word, but one book that really helped me aside from having mentoring from my pony, would be a book called Heaven and Earth, Making the Psychic Connection by James Bob Fogg.
Look for those old stuff that was written in the 50s and 60s on psychic training. Those are actually pretty good. I did find a primer that was written in, like, I think it was this early 60s, dug it up at the local library when I was a teen and used what I learned in it and actually got pretty decent. You know, it helped a lot for things like being able to tell where the bus was so that I wouldn't be late. Things like that, you know. It's a handy trick to have.
Yeah, totally. And then also another really good book is, I believe its title is Afterlife Connections by psychologist Dr. Jane Rearer. And then there's another one that really, really helped me, and it just kind of like clicked. It really put something into perspective for me. Was a book called Writing Between the Worlds by Linda Kohanob, the author of Tale for Eclipse. One of the stories in there where she talks about this lady that had a horse that was behaving so dangerously that nobody could get near it. And it was about 1 hour from being put down. The lady called Ms. Kohanoff trying to get, you know, some help, some last minute, can you please do something? And so Linda Kohanoff came to the lady's house, and she found out that through evaluating the horse and the lady, that the lady's past trauma experiences and the problems that she was dealing with from her own life were being reflected by the horse, and the horse was responding in relation to the energy that was being emitted by the owner. And the lady went and had, you know, she got healing for her traumas and stuff, and within a very short period of time, the horse actually just on its own basically calmed down and became a wonderful horse. And it was, you know, it really kind of put things into perspective. So that's another really good book to check out.
Right. Is MJ12 now called Scion? S-C-I-O-N.
I don't know, Drake, is it?
Sorry?
I said, I don't know, Drake, is it?
I see how you guys are. Good question. I don't know.
Does MJ12...
I want to go back to the other question that was asked right before you asked the MJ12 one, and that is, they asked a little bit about, I think the question is a little bit into the process of who gets chosen, or how do people get chosen to interface with ETs. Well, quite frankly, it's not a matter of being chosen or picked out of the crowd. It's a matter of being ET and having arranged to come down here, and that's my family. Most people who are contactees are also incarnates.
Yeah. And usually the ones that contact them are their family members. Like with me, the first one I got contacted with outside of the mentoring that I got from my pony, which she's been with me through almost my entire existence, was my brother. And then from my brother, it went on to our commander, and then from our commander, it went on to one of our closest friends that's a crewmate, and it kind of just expanded from there. The more, depending on what was needed to be brought through. But the first one that contacted me that I spoke to telepathically was my brother.
Right. To the person who asked the question, it's not a case of being gifted or special. It's just a case of being different. Not gifted or special. It's just different. Next question.
And not being close to the possibility either. Being open to the possibility and training those things that we were told doesn't exist. Yeah, it's hard to do. When you're told constantly that it ain't real, it's hard to do it. But if you stick to it and take it as at least provisionally real because you can experience it, you can learn how to do it.
Yeah, I was raised in a family that it has, for generations, been a part of, knowing and understanding that the paranormal is very much real and it exists. And so it wasn't, so much of a shock when I started developing, the telepathy and that kind of thing.
Right, last question, yes or no. Is there an Earth twin on the other side of the sun?
An Earth twin? No.
No.
Right? No. Drake, do you want to finish up? We've got a minute before the music.
I just love the idea of these questions getting better and better and more detailed. It shows an interest. It shows a great interest in the show, and that's part of the idea. We want to get the info out. We want people to be able to understand that there may be people who are in direct contact through a combination of different methods, and don't be too surprised if you get a knock on your door and somebody you never saw before standing there going, "Hi, we're here now. Can we have a cold beer in the backyard?" You'll find that most, and I've met a variety of what might be classified as ETs, angels, or whatever handle you want to stick on there, and I have yet to find one that wasn't sociable and generally with the kind of sense of humor of a practical joker. So I think this is going to be more fun than any kind of worker involved, and that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Right, thanks for that, Drake. Anything quick you want to say, Tanaath? Sunfire?
Don't give in to fear. Make your decisions based out of love, not out of fear, and that'll go a long way to help you. Thanks for that. Right, we're at the end of the show. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back, me and Drake, on Sunday afternoon. My name is Thomas Williams.